We are back with the Hubscale Podcast, where we dive into the minds of security leaders all around the world. This week, we have Sid Trivedi. He's a partner at Foundation Capital, and we've known each other for some time, but appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you for having me.
Amazing stuff. So I guess just starting off the podcast, right, just give it a bit of introduction to yourself, Foundation Capital, and everything along those lines.
Sure. So, Foundation, we've been fortunate to be in business since 1995. We're one of the older venture firms here in Silicon Valley and broadly in the world. We're, now 30 years old this year. Currently investing, our 11th fund. We're very active in a whole bunch of our companies, and most of our focus, Elliot, is at the seed and Series A stages. So we typically lead the seed or the Series A round. We take a board seat. We're very active in these companies, and we help to scale them over the longer term. And obviously, our hope and our vision and the aspiration is to help to take a bunch of these companies public and make them, long-term enduring businesses. We invest in three broad areas: enterprise, fintech, and crypto. Enterprise is about 60% of our investing today. I spend most of my time in enterprise, and I lead most of our work in security and IT investing. So basically all the tools and technologies that sell into the CISO, CIO, the traditional CTO, that's where I spend my time.
Amazing. It's super exciting because I remember us speaking about this before, right? It's the early stage investment. There's so much that goes on in the world, and there's so many companies out there and things on those lines as well. So I'm super excited to dive into some of the topics that we kind of had as well today. But I guess just really starting everything off, what really makes a good investment, especially in that enterprise world, in the security and IT world, you focus on so much, but what really makes a good investment in that world?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, maybe I'll turn it around because it's very hard to assess what makes a good or bad investment. I mean, I wish that we had a book that we could give to founders that explained how to, build a great company. Because A, it would make our lives easier, B, it would make their lives easier, and C, we'd probably generate a lot more value for the world. So if that existed, or if it exists, please let me know. Anyone who's listening in here, I'd love to read that book. But the way that we evaluate companies, which is a different way of answering your question, is we look at things on different lenses. And for me personally, and I forgot to mention, my background, but I've been at the firm for 7 years. I've been focused on the security and IT investing market for the last 12 years. So I've had some experience, some exposure to working with great founders, investing in them, spending time with them, assessing them. And the way that at the earliest stages, you have a few different things that you're evaluating. One is market, and you're trying to understand what's the specific insertion point. Is this the right time? Why is this the right time? What makes this market so unique? Who are the buyers? What are they thinking about? There's the founders, and you spend a lot of time trying to assess, who are the people who are going to build this company? What do they know about this market? What makes them so special to go after it? What unique insight do they have? What have they done in the past? How has that developed them? What are their weaknesses? Obviously, what are their spikes? The third thing you spend a lot of time thinking about, if you have it, is product. And there you're trying to assess, why is this product so much different to, the alternative products that are out there. And certainly in security, where we have 6,000 startups, there's enough products for almost every sub-vertical that we can think of. So that's, product. The fourth thing is metrics. At the earliest stages, it's very hard to get a lot of data, but if you do have it, you spend a little bit of time trying to assess who is the customer here, how much are they spending, how are those customer buying patterns like, will there be opportunity for upsell, what does churn look like, what's the pricing motions that we have tried in the past. And then the last thing that you spend time on is valuation. And really, the way I'd say is kind of the terms of the deal. What is the opportunity? Sometimes you have a great company, a great opportunity, but a deal term that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Sometimes you have things that may not work out, but it's also early and the team is willing to kind of work with you to come up with a structure that is interesting where you can kind of build the company over time. At the stage that we operate in Foundation, and where I spend my time at kind of that seed and, once in a while Series A stages, typically the first bucket, market, you have some context there. Typically you have some context on the founders. All the other things, much more difficult. Valuation and deal terms, yes, you have some context, but we're coming in very, very early. For context, in our enterprise investing side, 80% of the time we're investing pre-product. So you're coming in, well in advance of anything. And, 35% of the time we're investing even at inception, which is that we are co-creating. Co-creating is a term that's used by other people. We don't take some type of founder equity or anything when we do that, but we're effectively helping the founders come up with an idea and come up with the team. And sometimes we're bringing multiple folks together to build out that team. At that stage, really the only things you can work with are market and founder. So I spend a lot of time trying to debate between the two, and sometimes one thing looks great and the other one doesn't, and you're trying to assess which one's more important.
Yeah. There's it's super exciting. I had one of the gentlemen on a while ago on the podcast, and he actually built and sold two companies. One of them was to Palo Alto Networks, and now he went to another company. Two of the previous companies were in brand new areas, so completely greenfield market and territory. So they had no idea what they was coming up against when they was doing it. When looking to kind of build their third company, they looked at a bigger problem and said, how can we do that better? So it's so interesting, like having, especially that when you get with founders and ideas together, like assessing the market and really understanding what's going out there. So I absolutely love that. I think it's amazing. I want to go back to your first point though, founders. It's so hard at that stage, isn't it? Because it's more, you've got to really kind of build a relationship with them. And one of the books I read, it was talking about is more dating. You've got to see each other a few more times to get through that. But what do you look for? I know it's probably different all the time, but what do you look for in a founder when you're meeting them for the first, second, third time, really?
Yeah, great question. The thing, it's very hard to give a quick answer to that question, but the thing that I really look for is founders who are relentless, which basically means that they're willing to go and push on every motion possible. And some of these motions are, creativity, which is, are you constantly learning? If I meet you the first time, by the second time, have you taken some of the feedback? Have you taken some of the discussions? Not to say, my thoughts or, my ideas are better than yours or anything, but mostly just how are you absorbing what we're talking about? If there was something that was interesting that we spoke about that you were interested in, did you go and do some work by the second meeting? Are you evolving as a person? Sometimes we don't think about it. There's nothing interesting that I say, but by the second meeting, the founder has done a whole bunch of work that has shown that they've evolved. That evolution of your own mindset is just so essential. So, are you relentless in doing that? The second piece is obviously obvious, which is, are you hardworking? Are you spending a lot of time on this? Again, you have to be relentless in this business because there are some amazing founders out there, particularly in cybersecurity, who do not sleep, who are there to win. And so if you're not willing to do that, it's just a very, very difficult environment. The third, area is, are you relentless in hiring the best people? Do you have the ability to go and get the best folks to work with you? And part of that is, selling them on the vision, which is very, very important. But the other part is actually giving them enough agency. And people, they don't want to work in an environment where they're being told exactly what to do. The best people want to be in an environment where they feel like they can flourish and have enough agency to go and come up with their own ideas and own their own parts. So if you're hiring an amazing VP of engineering, are you giving him or her the ability to run the engineering team? Or are you kind of basically the backseat driver telling them exactly what to do? If that's the case, you're just not going to get a good VP of engineering. That's a big part. Are you relentless in getting the best folks? Are you relentless in getting customers? One of my founders a couple of years ago, he made this comment. And this is a founder, Elliot, Travis Stanfield at Stacklet. He made this comment at a board meeting. He said, I'm either going to get a purchase order or a restraining order. Like that comment, it has really stuck with me over the years. I tell all my founders, all the new ones I make investments in, I tell them, this is the attitude you need to have with customers. If you're not willing to put in that attitude, I mean, there are amazing people out there. Jay Chaudhry, he has that attitude at Zscaler. George Kurtz, he has that attitude at CrowdStrike. Dmitry Alperovich has that attitude. I mean, if you don't have that attitude, the best customers, they just have other people to talk to. That's a big factor. So the relentless attitude that you have broadly, whether it's with interacting with customers, interacting with investors, interacting with potential recruits, just, having conversations with your own team. That's the biggest factor that I look at.
Yeah. I love that, and then I'm really excited to go on about the hiring stuff. I'll dive into that a little bit later on because that's what I do every day. But I love that note from Travis. It's so funny, isn't it? But I like actually how you articulated that because it's not just relentless in one thing; it's relentless in everything consistently over a long period of time. And this is what sometimes people miss, isn't it? It's not just you can't be a founder and kind of plod away and just go through it. It just doesn't work that way. But no, really, really good advice there.
And maybe just one thing to add on exactly your point. You can't just be relentless in the things you like.
Yeah.
If you're a technical founder, you can't just say, "Hey, I love code, so I'm going to be the best, person in terms of building the product, but I just don't want to talk to other customers, or I don't want to talk to the investors." There are very few exceptions where that works. I mean, hell, you have to write really, really, really good code if you want to be in that bucket. And most folks are, you can't build a very, very successful company doing that. So it has to be, are you willing to go, and spend a lot of time in the things you love and do them great, but also the things you don't love. There are a lot of things that, both you and I don't like doing. But if we don't put in 150% effort, it's just not going to, it's not going to work out. Using the example in my case, I don't love saying no. I hate sending passing emails. I mean, it's just not a good experience. Not for me. It's certainly not good for the founders. And in many cases, I do have to do that. So, in a given year, I'm meeting somewhere between 700 to 1,000 founders. And I do somewhere between 1 to 3 investments. Sometimes on a really, really good year, maybe I'll do 4 investments. So, for the vast majority of those conversations, I end up having to say no. And I have the option, and many VCs choose not to say no because it's just so depressing and it's not so much fun. But I want to make sure that I get back to every single founder with a decision, and I get back in a quick manner. But that requires me to think through, why am I saying no? What are the reasons? Is there any advice I can share with them? What's the thought process? And the goal, is ultimately I want every founder to have a good experience, to feel like, hey, I spent the time with Sid. I met with him, whether it was once or twice or 3 times or maybe multiple times. And he said no, but here was what I learned. And here's the limited value that Sid could add in that conversation. He was able to do that. It's not a fun experience, but it results in an overall better founder experience. And that overall better founder experience, I mean, the number of founders who I've ended up standing down, not doing the investment, and have still maintained very good relationships with, I mean, that over time really scales up. And you can use that to actually, if you're going and looking for a net new founder that you've heard about who's starting a new company, it's very easy to get a founder reference, even from a founder that you've said no to. So, I mean, it's not the most fun part of my job, but it's one that I feel is very important. And as a founder, you're going to have pieces of your job that is not going to be fun, but you have to put in dedicate the effort, the 150%. And I'm sure you have examples on the hiring side of equivalent
Oh,
situations.
definitely. Probably talk about that for too long. But I think that's really, really cool though, because you're still maintaining those relationships over a long period of time. And it's what you're doing with Cyber Seed, right, as well, is the events that you do and all the stuff that you kind of giving back to the community about people coming together and sharing what's going on. I think that's just awesome as well. So I know we wasn't going to talk about this, but tell us about Cyber Speed just a little bit. I think
Yeah, good question. It's a great question. Thank you for asking. So, look, having done investing in cyber, my goal has always been to improve founder experience and recognize that the vast majority of founders I interact with, we're not going to have the opportunity to partner. So how do I make sure that those founders are thinking about me? Because they may see the next best founder out there in the market. And at the very minimum, I'd like the opportunity to at least get to hear the journey, get to hear their story and potentially also have the opportunity to partner with that person. And then these relationships are long. So maybe I won't partner on the first company that you do, but hopefully have the opportunity to still partner on your second and your third. So with that in mind, my entire career, at least in the venture business, I've really tried to focus on what can I do to improve overall founder experience? Because my personal view is that if that is heightened, it eventually will lead to very good investments. And with that in mind, when we had COVID happen, there was a lot of focus on trying to help our own portfolio companies connect with one another and also get them access. And certainly in Silicon Valley, and we have this again now. I mean, COVID has very much ended multiple years ago, but we used to do a lot of events. And those events, you'd get to meet a lot of good people. Sometimes they'd be customers, sometimes they'd be other investors, sometimes they'd just be founders, sometimes they'd be successful operators. Because of COVID, where we couldn't physically meet, we had to reduce the number of people we could have in these quote unquote virtual events so that there could be some type of interaction. So, including at Foundation and most other firms, what we did was we tried to reduce the number of participants, quote unquote, in a virtual event so that you could have real conversation the same way that you'd have networking in a happy hour, in a physical happy hour. The second thing we did at Foundation was we certainly created very, very large virtual conferences. So we did this very large conference in 21 and 22 called FC Build. All the videos are up, and we had some of the biggest people. I mean, each of us, we went and thought about who are the folks we know who are incredibly talented in enterprise software broadly, and let's get them into a conference so the best founders can hear about them. But the problem with that was it was a very large virtual conference setting. There was no opportunity to interact. It was just, you had thousands of people attend. It was very complex. So with that in mind, I was trying to think through, well, what can we do that helps the net new either current founder who's at the seed stage or prospective founder, somebody who's thinking about starting a company, the folks that we used to have come to our networking happy hours and you get to spend a little bit of time with them. And, together with two other friends, Mahendra and Chengsi, we kind of came up with this vision where we said, let's do these monthly virtual chats. We open them up to anybody in security founders who are predominantly at the seed stage, which is why we called it cyber seed. And as well as folks who are thinking about starting a company, and we'll get great security founders to come every month and present kind of their journey, and then we'll have kind of a virtual happy hour. That was the whole vision. Certainly, we've now done that over multiple years, but the amazing thing was that it gave us the opportunity to go and talk to people who we hadn't invested in, and typically who hadn't gotten investment from other venture firms. So they were not experiencing kind of the virtual happy hours that we were doing for our portfolio because they weren't in any other portfolio. That was a big factor. Got lucky in late 23. My good friend Patrick Johnson at SVB, who runs a big part of their kind of venture banking on the cyber front, he called me and he said, "Look, Sid, I've been reading about the cyber seed stuff. Have you ever thought of doing an in-person event?" I said, Patrick, I'd love to do that, but we've on purpose kept this separated from Foundation because, these are not Foundation founders. These are just generally founders in security. And as soon as I combine the two, then I have to think about what's the Foundation lens. How are we looking at it from a opportunity to actually A, add value for our portfolio companies, but B, also find the next best founders. And that's a very different, set of goals than just broadly cyber seed, which is supposed to help the cyber community. And Patrick's, point was, he said, "Look, we can give you some level of dollars to go and host these events, and we have an amazing space in SF, and let's go and try this stuff out." And we've kind of transported this predominantly virtual meetup into also being in person combined with virtual. And so that's been fantastic. In fact, for your listeners, if they hear this, we have a big one coming up at RSA that we do. It's the last day of RSA, Thursday night, and we basically do a happy hour just for founders, like 100% only founders, no investors, no customers. I guess I'm an investor, but I'm not there as an investor in that case. and the goal is just for founders to meet each other on the last day of the conference in a completely unofficial setting. Those are the types of things that we want to do, and we want to just broadly improve founder experience so that founders can feel like they're getting help from one another.
Yeah. No, I love it. I really do because it's like a sense of community, right? And I know a lot of founders sometimes I know they've got their venture capital firms and maybe co-founders they can turn to, but a lot of them feel slightly a little bit lost sometimes, especially going through the journey. And it's hard, isn't it? Right? Building a successful SaaS cybersecurity company is really, really hard. And having other people who are going through the same stuff at the same time is just so helpful. So I honestly love it, Sid. I think it's amazing. I think taking it from post-investment, then, so we've made the investment, 0 to 1. That's the sometimes a lot of people say it's the hardest thing to get to that first kind of product market fit to whatever it is that one means to a lot of people. How do you do that? And in all your experience and all the years that you've been doing that, what makes that kind of successful, really?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. The way we think about 0 to 1 is really 0 to 1 million of ARR.
Yep.
That's how we think about it, which is how do you go from having no revenue, and in our case, 80% of the time, no product? How do you go from that to a million of ARR? Ideally from multiple customers, not just one customer. So
Yep.
ideally from 10 to 12 customers. So a couple of six-figure deals, maybe a few five-figure deals. And, to do that, first you have to obviously build product. You have to build something that is of value. Second, you have to match that product with a specific customer. And that specific customer is not just, company of X size, growth stage company versus enterprise software company, broader enterprise company versus enterprise software company, sectors, healthcare, financials, consumer, retail. There's a whole bunch of other subsectors. So that's one piece of figuring out the customer. But the second piece is who within the customer. If you're selling a SOC automation tool, you have to go into the SOC team. Don't go to the CISO. Just not a good idea. You're building something in the SaaS space. Don't go to the CISO. You likely need to go to somebody in product security. But really, what is the specific role you're targeting? So that's a big part. The third part is distribution, which is really, once you figured out who that ICP is, obviously you have a product that fits in with that ICP. How do you reach that person? What is your process by which you reach that person in that company? And it typically is not a blanket send a marketing message to the world strategy. It is very much a tailored strategy. Maybe you're attending very, very specific smaller scale events. Maybe you're hosting very small dinners. Maybe you're going after a very specific set of initial customers. Maybe you're leveraging your investors. Maybe you're leveraging your advisors, but really thinking through that piece. The fourth part to get from 0 to 1 is really, do you have the right team members? A, obviously around how to build product, building the best product in that space. But B, on the distribution front, who are the right people that will help you get there? That's a big factor. So those are really the four things that help you to go from, 0 to 1.
Yeah. It's exciting because I've done so much work in this space, from literally the first sales hire to the first VP of sales to CMO to marketing to product to whatever that may be. And I always find it so interesting is because they're all very similar profiles, but they have their different nuances. And I think we can tie into this is just about hiring people as well, because when you're hiring somebody in an organization, especially from an early doors, that ICP, that focus has to be there. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning about the founders being relentless. These people who come on have to be the same. They have to have that mentality to come out there and build it as well. So just on the hiring piece, just while we're talking about that, how do you go around when you're working with the founders and the teams and even search firms like myself? How do you go out there and make sure you're getting the right people for the specific stage of that 0 to 1 journey?
Yeah, excellent question. So the first part is that, I don't think that there's a specific search firm that can do every single role. It's just very, very hard to be good at every single thing. So it's figuring out who are the good search firms for the specific role that you're going after. And those search firms for specific roles also change because the people at the search firms change all the time. I mean, you know this, Elliot. Like, you're running a search firm, so you have some context on who's on the team, who's not on the team, and that has impact on what are the areas where you're strong and not strong. At the end of the day, just like in sales where people sell software to people, here you have people interacting with people to get hired. At the end of this is not a software hiring is not a software business. It's certainly helpful to go and generate the leads, but it's very, very hard to get the right people in the door and get them at the right time and identify them. So, it's first is figuring out who is the search firm or group of search firms that'll be helpful. And typically you want to have multiple search firms, typically for multiple searches. There are very few exceptions where retained searches make a lot of sense. Typically at the largest kind of most senior roles, typically when things have been figured out and you have a very good specific set of person that you want to go after. The second part that I really try to push my founders to think about is who are the groups of people who are going to run the interview cycles, particularly the initial interview cycle. And really the goal there is to make sure that that person A is identified in terms of aptitude, but B is also identified in terms of cultural fit. If you don't get, you could have amazing aptitude, but not be a great cultural fit for that company, it's just not going to work out. And the vice versa, I've also seen as an example, this person's a really nice guy or gal, but they just don't actually add any value. In a startup, it's very obvious.
Mhm.
So, just making sure you have the right people in the interview cycle is really important. I try to make sure that I can make myself available for these recruiting cycles when necessary. So, in terms of senior leadership hires, so if you're hiring your first head of sales, head of product, CTO, anything in that bucket, I want to make sure that I'm involved because usually I have something that's of value to share with the founders. If you're hiring an individual engineer, I really leave it up to my founders. I say, look, if you want me to get involved in this on the cycle, I'm there. If you want me to just sell, I'm there. Just give me the context and they'll give me enough perspective on what to do. But I'm not going to go there and, assess aptitude on the best engineering talent. Like, it's just not, if I'm doing that, we have a very big problem. We probably, we have a little bit of an issue at that point. So I don't try to, get involved in that scenario. And I don't want to be a backseat driver. But there are specific searches where it makes a lot of sense, even for that individual, more junior role, for me to get involved. Typically, your first sales hire, sometimes they're not the VP of sales, they're an AE. Founder calls me and says, "Look, I don't have," and it's typically a technical founder, "I don't have a good sense of how to assess this person. Would you be willing to take the meeting and just give me some feedback?" Those are great examples of just bringing your investor along because they will be able to provide some perspective and some feedback for you. Those are the things I think about, on the hiring side, particularly 0 to 1.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense completely. And I'd love to challenge you a little bit on the piece about no one search firm can do everything. That's the whole point of Hubscale, but maybe that's for another time. But yeah, no, honestly,
Hey, if you figure it out, I'd love that. I would absolutely love that. And I'm
yeah,
happy that you're involved in multiple searches for us.
yeah, no, it's been amazing partnering together so far, Sid, which is awesome. But I love it, right? And this is why I think I have a bit of a passion for recruitment because especially when working on senior searchers and the actual amount of work that it takes to bring the right people to the team and get from them through the whole process and speak to the investors and everybody involved and things on those lines. It's a lot of compiling things together. And you're so right about picking the right people to work with you on all fronts as well. But I guess in terms of some of the hires and characteristics that you would look out for, maybe split these into three buckets and we can run through them very quickly. But sales, CTO, CPO. If you could just quickly run through the top characteristics of what you give some advice to some of the founders listening, maybe looking for one of those hires right now.
Yeah. Sorry, you're thinking VP of sales or you think just us, the first
So
salesperson?
leaders wise, VP and then
Okay.
CTO, yeah.
Okay. Okay. VP of sales, really you're looking for somebody, particularly at the earliest stage, who is a player coach, i.e., they can, parachute in and try to win a specific deal, also help with creating new opportunities, but they have the ability to go and manage a team, which is very, very hard to find. I mean, Elliot, you do enough of these searches, so like we're looking for snowflakes here.
Yep.
And that's why they're so important. That's why they add so much value. Finding those people really makes or breaks a company, particularly for companies in security where there is typically a technical founder who is the CEO. So that's, VP of sales. CTO or VP of engineering is somebody who can go from we have an idea to actually executing and building the product. And the reason this is important is typically founders, they have lots and lots of ideas. The VP of engineering's job is to go and structure which are the things that matter and how do we get from a bunch of cool, crazy ideas to a real product, a viable product. And how do you ensure that the engineering team works in a process oriented path to actually achieving that? And most importantly, what I look for in great VPs of engineering is if they come to a board meeting and they say, we will have X done by Y time, that they actually deliver on that, particularly at 0 to 1 phase. The number of times that somebody says, hey, I'm going to have product done by XYZ month, and then they don't meet that. In fact, they, delay it by 6 more months. It happens all the time. So the best VPs of engineering, you feel very, very confident that when they tell you, Elliot, we're going to get this done by March, it will be done by March. It's not going to be, May or June or December. It'll be done by March.
Yeah.
That's really important. The best CPO is typically somebody, and this is a this of all the three jobs is the hardest, by the way. I should mention one. The reason it's the hardest is the founders usually have their own opinions on what matters in product. So the VP of product, yes, they're obviously trying to influence the founders, but they can't completely decide what product is going to be built. In fact, if they are deciding that, then they should just be the founder. And there are lots of cases where the founder is the VP or the VP of product or the CPO, and that's fine too. But typically, if there is an external VP of product hired, their job is to go and take the feedback from the founders, take the feedback from the customers, which is usually being routed through sales, and also butt heads typically with the VP of engineering to figure out which of the features you can build versus not build in the amount of time we have, because the best VPs of engineering are trying to hit their timelines and come up with a game plan that overall shows a product vision and a product roadmap that makes sense. That is, of all the three jobs, it's the hardest because it requires a lot of kind of internal and external thought process to really come up with a strategic vision for the company, while factoring the fact that, look, you can influence the product, but you cannot decide it. You're still at the behest of the founders and their opinions. Even the best founders, they're very strong in their opinions on how the product should look.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, typically you see the CTO or the CPO, at least one of them be one of the co-founders, don't you? And things like that as well, and things like that. But no, it's super exciting. I honestly love it. I love this world. We've done work with much larger companies as well, but of course, this is one of the fundamentals of the situation as well. But there's so much going on in the security world right now, from innovations in network security, IAM, AI, all this kind of really cool stuff coming out. But where you seeing a lot of the innovations and things happening? I know Foundation have a bunch of amazing companies and different markets within cyber, but it'd be amazing to see your thoughts, really.
Yeah, great question. I think we are seeing two big waves broadly in software. One is this wave on AI, which is certainly, it is become the biggest wave that has really kind of shaken everybody to their core. Everyone's thinking, whether it's in security or networking or in application software or every tool in HR. I mean, we're seeing lots of opportunity there. The second big wave that we're seeing is kind of the use of crypto, which is very heavily used on the fintech side, on the consumer side. How are we leveraging crypto at real scale with real opportunities? And those are the two waves that we're really pushing on the enterprise, fintech and crypto fronts. On the AI side, when you look specifically at cyber, there's kind of two broad areas. One is, how do you use AI in your existing security workflows? And there I've been spending a lot of time trying to understand what are the different roles in a security team. So, you have the SOC team, you have the product security team, you have the CISO and the deputy CISO, kind of the strategy team, you have the network security team, you have the cloud security engineer. There's a set of, you have the threat intel analyst. There's a set of these roles. And how will AI impact the roles? What is the productivity boost that we can create in these specific roles by doing certain things? And today, the biggest focus in terms of startups has been on the SOC side. We've seen lots and lots of vendors try to go and build some level of automation for the SOC team, and there's a reason for that. There's just a lot of data and a lot of alerts that come into the SOC, so makes a lot. It feels like low hanging fruit. The second area has been product security, and the reason for that is it's so close to touching code, and there is so much work going on in code generation that you're thinking about, hey, as this code generation creates broadly more code, how do you go and secure that code? And how do you leverage AI to more effectively secure that code in a more productive manner? The second opportunity is around kind of securing AI. And that is securing the underlying models. It's securing how folks interact with these agents. It's securing what the agents do, because the agents are also becoming autonomous. Those are kind of the two broad buckets. Today, a lot of our investing has been in the first bucket in cyber, which has been really around automation of security workflows. We've done a little bit of stuff on the second bucket, which is securing AI, but we're still early in trying to figure out where are the use cases, how easy is this going to be? Is this the right time? Your first question of this conversation, you asked me about, what are the things we care about. Timing is a big part of all this. And a lot of my thinking has been around, is this the right time to make the investments to focus on model security, to focus on securing AI agents, to focus on the agent interactions for the employees? that piece is a big factor. And is there enough budget to go and create these companies?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I think the whole world's changed really since AI came around, right? But the evolution of it is just going pretty crazy. And you've seen some really cool companies, specifically in cyber. A lot of them coming out of Tel Aviv, some out of the US that we know from being in the market. But it's going to be interesting, I think, over the next few years. So I guess we'll see. But I always want to leave on one question, Sid, and I think I love asking this question at the end of the podcast. But if you had to go back to the beginning of your career, what would you tell yourself?
Um, yeah, it's an excellent question. I think the thing I would tell myself is every interaction you have, you should try to leave that interaction with a positive experience. And this connects very much to, your whole topic around cyber seed and founder experience. But you just don't know. You have no idea where those things will go in the future. I'll give you a great example. I started my career as an analyst in investment banking, and I was the most junior person on my team in New York. And I used to sit in a cubicle on my floor. And opposite me, there was a guy, his name is Prashant Chandrasekhar. He used to sit in an office. And once in a while, I'd go and say hi to him. I didn't work on any deals with him, worked on no deals with him during my time. And, I just wanted to strike a conversation, say hello, ask him what he's doing. He'd gone to Cornell, which is same school I went to, done his engineering degree there. Prashant Chandrasekhar is now the CEO of Stack Overflow, the largest community of developers. I mean, it's just a great example. Like, I didn't have to talk to him at all. There were 150 people on that floor, including Jeb Bush, by the way, was on the same floor as me at the bank at the time. So a lot of great people for me to talk to. He was in no way the most senior person. I was in no way I was the most junior person, probably the most junior person on that floor at the time. But, just striking a conversation, talking to him, staying in touch, being a friend. Like today, the value that I get just texting Prashant on a different topic on how developers are interacting, it's immense. Like he is running the largest community that developers are talking on. It's just truly one of the unique things. So that's probably the one thing I'd say. You just don't know what these interactions will be like, who you're talking to, but you want to leave a positive experience. You want to make sure that A, to some extent you're remembered, and B, that the person feels like, they enjoyed talking to you.
No, I love that. I really do. I think that's a massive part of anyone's life, right? And I always believe in being nice to everybody and staying positive and giving everybody a really good impression at number day one because you never know what happens. So no, I can relate to that a lot. But no, Sid, honestly, I really, really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I think it's been an amazing show, an amazing episode. So thank you so much for coming on. And I'll be at RSA as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not allowed to the founders event, of course, because I'm not a cybersecurity founder.
I'm sure we can make an exception.
Love it. But no, thank you so much, Sid.
Thanks, Elliot.